Okay, so welcome. We're live for the Node.js Technical Steering Committee meeting for June 19th, 2019. We'll start by following our standard agenda, which is to ask if there's any announcements.
Yeah, I will go first. This is Node.js /Node 27731 issue nominating Jiawen Jen to be a Node.js collaborator, endorsed by TSC, nominated by Ruben, and supported by the collaborators. Matteo and I will be onboarding Jiawen tomorrow, which is 20th of June, 7 p.m. Chinese Standard Time.
Okay, thanks. Maybe if you could just add in that, sorry. Let's see if I can, no, I got that. Okay, if you can just add in that to the minutes, the issue number, that would be great.
I'll do that. Okay. Thanks.
Okay, so then moving on to the issues listed in the issue itself. Node.js node to start with. So benchmark, refactor buffer benchmarks 26418. There's been some discussion last week. We decided to push it back to GitHub. I don't know if anybody has any thoughts or wants to comment on that one.
I had an idea. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the fundamental problem now is that benchmarks take too long to run, right? If you run all of them. And so, you know, this is one way to do it, is to trim back and see if we have any redundancy. But I was thinking, would it be possible like, if we want to run, quote unquote, all the benchmarks, would it be possible to just do like a random sampling of the benchmarks that has like a time limit cutoff? And so you wouldn't be running all the benchmarks, but you'd be running different benchmarks on different occasions. And you'd give it like a total of maybe, I don't know, 6 hours, 8 hours, we can pick a number. And then we'd still have a pretty good picture of what's going on, and we still have a pretty good chance of catching regressions while not exceeding the benchmark runtime. And then we needn't worry so much about trimming back the benchmarks.
I suspect, though, I mean, like it would have to be by category or something, because I suspect today if people run a benchmark, they will do it because they've changed something like in HTTP or somewhere else, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm like for specific changes which are potentially performance sensitive. Definitely, you want to run the relevant benchmarks, right? But I don't believe, my understanding is that no one benchmark takes that long to run, right? So unless you're affecting a bunch of subsystems, you should be all right.
I think the problem is that they do, like, so I think this PR just changes the buffer benchmarks, for example.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and that one takes way too long to run on its own.
Okay, I see. Okay, so even one benchmark, okay. Yeah, okay, so I guess this is mostly relevant for this thing we've been talking about in benchmarking, which is, you know, establishing this run every time versus, or like an exhaustive check versus a lightweight check.
Yeah, exactly. Like so what you just suggested could make sense for like a nightly run to run something differently and figure out. I think in this case, it's like this, the PR is intended to try and trim the buffer benchmark so that it's actually feasible for somebody to run it before a check-in, right?
Yeah. Okay, yeah, so I guess it's kind of orthogonal, but still, I just wanted to get the idea out there that we could potentially do this, and then we don't need to define like, okay, this benchmark is part of the exhaustive run. This benchmark, you know, we need not, you know, label each benchmark that way.
Right.
Or each combination of parameters.
Right.
Okay, yeah, so I guess it doesn't help with this issue.
Right. We've had a few more approvers.
Yeah.
I mean, I think what it comes down to is there's a blocking objection.
Yeah.
And at some point, we either have to, you know, continue the conversation to figure out if that blocking objection can be overcome. We can come up with another solution that everybody agrees. Or if that's not possible, then, you know, it would end up with a vote or something like that. So I don't know, Sam, do you have any view on where we're at in terms of that process at this point?
I think it's probably time to vote.
Okay. So this basically, it's if somebody wants to move for a vote, we could do that.
I think Rich did, and people have already voted. Actually, I mean, yeah. So Rich it might be just time to close the vote, I guess.
Okay. So I'm going to say Rich in the meeting. So does anybody object to us going to a vote at this point?
I'm good with that. I think we can land this. It's, you know, we've had so many eyes on this that I think it's probably okay to land, right?
Yeah, I think we specifically have to vote though, because there is a blocking objection, and that's.
Oh no, for sure. Yeah.
We agreed in the meeting that we should vote. Should complete the vote. Okay. I don't know. I'm just asking Rich because he'd asked for a vote before. Do you want to complete? Okay. Okay, so agreed that we'll do a vote on that one, and okay, agreed from those in the meeting move to vote. There is objection. Okay, so then unless there's something else on that front, let's move on to the next issue, which is 24347, which is make compact finish match HTTP1. That was put on the agenda by okay, so it was on the agenda because I guess Matteo added it. Anatoly, I guess everybody was waiting for comment from you, or otherwise the ask was that we move forward. So it sounds like though you're back now and will comment in the issue.
Yep. Yeah, I'll provide feedback. I just need to. The original objection was because the code that exists right now is there for a reason of compatibility with Express. So before we change it, we need to make sure that it doesn't break compatibility mode in the first place. So I think the PR is correct, I think, but it fixes one issue, it breaks another one, so we need to actually fully fix it.
Okay. Okay, so I think that as long as you're the request was sort of say go ahead anyway, but since you're back, I think we just leave it in the issue. We'll wait for your comments and take it from there until at least next week.
Yep, sounds good.
Okay. So moving on to the issues tagged under Node/TSC. The first one is 718, nominating Bethany Griggs to the TSC. So far, I've only seen positives, but it's just on the agenda for awareness to the rest of the team here. So go and add in your comments, and we'll invite Bethany as an observer from now on until I guess pending the outcome. The next issue is update the TSC Charter 698. Nothing new on that front, just waiting for the CPC to approve, That may actually be happening at the same time because the current CPC meeting is right now as well. And so hopefully that'll just land. No Miles. I guess we don't have, I should say, no board representative. So no updates. As Miles mentioned, he's moved on to be the Google representative. There is an issue in the admin repo for an election, so that should be going out Joe and Matteo are managing that, so that's next up on that. And then finally, the final issue is strategic initiatives, which is number 423. Just open that one up. Okay, so I'm just going to skip through. On the NAPI front, I think the most interesting thing is we had a presentation from Ali and Ohad, which is an intern working with him, on how NAPI and WebAssembly may be used together. And they're working on basically a prototype where it may turn, depends on how hard it turns out to be. It may just end up being a PR against Node that would use NAPI for the bindings with WebAssembly. So that's quite interesting. Otherwise, we have submissions into some of the conferences on the evangelization front, and we're working through some of the the top issues that have been questions and answers.
On the WebAssembly front, Gus Kaplan actually has an implementation of NAPI, believe it or not, written in JavaScript, which can be passed as an import module to WASM, and it actually he has like a simple add-on that actually works. So he's been helping me get it to run, and I have actually gotten it to run. So
okay.
Yeah, there's lots of progress on that front. We'll have to figure out how to integrate it though, because for this, there's a chance that we might want to sort of liven up the NAPI test suite repo. We sort of broke off the test suite into its own repo, because if we're going to do something like support the browser as well type thing, then the NAPI implementation would have to be in JavaScript. Whereas yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. Like we talked about before, NAPI being implemented by the JavaScript engines. So that's also an option.
Oh, well, for sure. Yeah, I mean, if we can push it to the JavaScript engine,
yep.
then that's an immediate win. But until then, for Gus and I, we also talked about the fact that there's this WASM CAPI function is coming to V8, meaning
yep.
that we can actually expose our NAPI implementation to WASM without going all the way to JavaScript. But that doesn't work in a browser, right? So it's always good to have a fallback.
So that's exactly what Ali's working on, is the one that will expose the C version directly.
Aha. Okay, I see. Okay, good. Good.
It sounds like there's consensus that's probably what we would want to do in Node. But when you go back to the JavaScript side, who knows? So.
Oh, I see. So he's implementing a WASM module basically that provides an API.
I mean, my understanding, I don't think we want to go too much in the weeds here, but my understanding is actually it would be a PR to Node itself, which would expose what's needed so that you could, from WASM call it the NAPI-C functions. Kind of like WASI is functionality like through a PR that landed in Node. This would be something that can expose those C functions through that new C callable API.
All right. Okay.
But your point about the browsers as well is interesting. Like one path might be to get the I think in the perfect world the JavaScript implementers would actually implement it and provide it.
Yeah.
But a transition would be pretty easy for the V8 team to do that, right? Because we've already got one for them.
Yep.
But as a transition, having an alternative is also good. So.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. So I think that's an exciting area. I've scheduled also on July 8th. Again, if people are interested, a few people from the Mozilla team who are working on WASM are coming to hopefully talk through some of these issues too.
Excellent. Will you update the exact coordinates of the meeting in that issue?
It'll be our standard meeting.
Oh, during the NAPI meeting. Okay, I see. Okay, great.
Current plan anyway. Okay, so that's the NAPI. Let's see, next people who are here. Don't think I saw it here. Michael's also V8 currency.
Yeah, everything is good on that front. We are going to have V8 7.5 in the next Node.js release. And Canary is fine, so nothing much more to report.
All looks good. We'll have V8. Which one is it?
7.5.
7.5 in next release. Okay. And I think there's already a PR for 7.6, so is that one planned to get in before LTS as well?
We hope so, yes.
So, planned, yes. Okay. Looking through who else we have here. I think that's all of the strategic initiatives that we have somebody here for, which takes us to the end of the agenda. Does anybody have any other topics or things they want to add to the discussion?
Not from me.
Okay, so I guess at this point, thanks for everybody for taking the time for coming to today's meeting or watching on YouTube. And we'll talk next time. Bye.
Thanks, bye.